to the Football Philosophy channel, and this is Rating the Ratings, where I have a look at the ratings in one of the newspapers. I've chosen the Manchester Evening News today, just at random. I've looked at the ratings that they've given the United players after the 1-0 win against West Brom at Old Trafford yesterday. So I'll go through those shortly and compare them to my ratings. But just quickly on that game, a lot of people not happy with how Ollie played, not happy with him playing with two defensive midfield players. I don't agree with that. I believe he has to persevere with that. He did that after we had a terrible start to the season, where we lost 2 of the first 3, and we were lucky to win the other one against Brighton as well. But since he's changed it to going with two players out of McTominay, Matic and Fred, when he uses 2 of those 3 players, he's now used 2 of those 3 players against Newcastle, Everton, Chelsea, Arsenal, PSG, Leipzig and West Brom. There are some tough fixtures in there, even though there's a couple not so tough. And we've only lost 1 of those games with 2 of those players playing. The one game we lost was the Arsenal game at Old Trafford, where he did change the shape dramatically as well, by the way. We've also lost a game in Turkey, some people might add. But in Turkey, he only played Matic. Neither McTominay nor Fred started in Turkey, so that went wrong. You know, as soon as he's changed it, it's gone wrong. So he needs to persevere with it. He really does. We've got to have 2 players in there who take the defensive duties, not just seriously, but extra seriously. So I don't think he did anything wrong. It's important that we've got 2 wins on the bounce in the league, and hopefully we can take that further now, and hopefully we can grow in confidence from there. So to the Manchester Evening News ratings, they've given David De Gea, they've given him 8 out of 10. I'm not so sure he deserves an 8 out of 10. He didn't have a hell of a lot to do, but you could argue if a keeper keeps a clean sheet, he deserves an high mark no matter what else happens. So I won't go against him. The Evening News have said 8 out of 10 for David De Gea, so I'll stick with that. They mentioned 2 of his saves. I don't think any of them were worldies. He made a decent one with his left foot. They mentioned that one, and then one low to his right that he just got his fingertips to. It was a decent save. But go on, I'll settle for 8 out of 10 on David De Gea. He did keep a clean sheet. Wan-Bissaka, they've given him 5 out of 10. They've said that he just doesn't do enough going forward. I think that's a general criticism of Wan-Bissaka. Maybe it's a little bit harsh to level it at him game by game. You know what a player's strengths and weaknesses are. It might be a little bit harsh to say that. But I do think his passing let him down once or twice yesterday. So I will settle for that. Obviously, there's not going to be many high marks in this. Obviously, it wasn't such a great performance, although we did get a win we needed. So I think I'll agree with them on that as well. A 5 for Wan-Bissaka. Lindelof, they've given a 6 to. They've just said he didn't appear hampered by his back problem. When it comes to keeping clean sheets, after your keeper, your 2 most important players are your 2 centre-backs. Obviously, your full-backs are important, but not as much by any stretch as your 2 central defenders are. So Wan-Bissaka's got a 5, but obviously Wan-Bissaka's supposed to lend a hand a lot more going forward, and obviously won't be in position quite as often because the two central defenders stay back even when the full-backs are forward. So the central defenders are more important towards getting that clean sheet than anybody apart from the keeper. So I wouldn't go against Lindelof's 6 either. So I've agreed with all 3 so far with the Evening News. They've given Maguire a 6. I'll agree with that as well. The comment that they made, though, was the only United player who acted like a proper United player from start to finish. The only United player who acted like a proper United player from start to finish. I don't really get that. I thought he did okay. He did perfectly fine. As I say, I'll agree with the 6 out of 10. I do remember late in the game, Cavani running through an inside left channel expecting a ball over the top, and the ball went in the back row and off stand tier 1 from Harry Maguire. So I'm not so sure if he was acting like a proper United player when he played that pass, and I'm sure I could find 1 or 2 other moments where he wasn't quite like a proper United player, but he certainly did enough, I think, to deserve his 6. We're pretty solid defensively, most of the way through the game, I would say. Telles at left back, obviously it was his debut, so you could probably cut him a little bit of slack. They've given him a 6. I'll settle for that as well, a 6 out of 10. So I've agreed with the keeper and all the back four. They did mention his speculative shooting. His speculative shooting, I don't think he deserves that any criticism, because from what I remembered, it looked like something that they've worked on. Bruno picks him out from a corner. I think it might have been Bruno twice. But I think the 2 speculative shots that I remember, it seemed that they'd been worked on, as opposed to him just taking that opportunity, as it arose. There were things that had been worked on. So I don't think you can blame him for taking shots on if they were set pieces where the management have obviously agreed that he's going to take a shot. So I don't think he deserves marking down on that. And they've also said he had a couple of loose moments. I do remember one slack pass where Maguire had to scurry and sort of challenge for it. But overall, I thought he did okay on his debut, league debut anyway. I know he's played once in the Champions League. So I'll agree with the 6 out of 10. I've got to say there's a lot of clamour for him to go straight into the team from lots of quarters. But I don't, from what I've seen so far, he's certainly, he'd be behind Luke Shaw for me in the pecking order. Obviously, Luke's out for a few games, so we will see, quite a bit of Tellez, and he's going to have a chance to stake his claim. So, we'll know better in a few more games. But certainly after the 2 games that he's played so far, I would still plump for Luke Shaw as the number 1 left back from what I've seen so far. Into the midfield. They've given Fred a 6. That's the first one that I'm going to disagree with. I've given him a 5. They've said he rarely played. He said they've said he was tidy enough, but rarely played a memorable pass. I think it's a bit harsh to level not playing a memorable pass. It was one of those games. I don't think there was many memorable passes. If you're going to say that that Fred didn't play any memorable passes, I think you could say it about virtually everybody in the team. So I know they've got to write something, but I think that's a little bit harsh, levelling that against him, that he didn't play any memorable passes. What I'll level against him is his decision making. I've marked him down from a 6 to a 5, not just for this, but partly for this. His decision making on the edge of the box. He took one shot on where he was about 8 yards outside the penalty area. If you look at the different shades of grass, the cuts of the grass, he's not quite into the first shade outside the box. I always say that's too far to be shooting from. Very, very, very occasionally one will go in. You're better off getting the ball under and passing it than shooting if you're not in that final shade of grass outside with that final shade. I think they're generally 6 metres wide, them. So that'll put you within 6 metres of the edge of the box, and he was outside that. Not only was he outside that, but he was also a little bit to the right, so he wasn't directly in front of the goal. It was at an angle. It was a shot that was never on. It was never on, even if there wasn't a defender closing him down. If it was a clear shot at goal, it wouldn't have been a sensible shot to take. But there was a defender closing him down, and it was never on for that reason as well. And the ball just hit the defender, bounced up the field, and West Brom went up to, now a lot of people might not remember that this is what happened, but it's from that shot that the ball bounced up the field and they broke away and it hit the crossbar. So, we're lucky that they didn't score from Fred having a shot when he shouldn't have been taking a shot. It's a stupid shot to take on, and he shouldn't have done it. But then, a few minutes later, he arrives on the edge of the box where he's actually, I think he's just inside the box, or he's certainly within a foot or so of the box as he reaches the ball. A ball that's laid back for him, rolling nicely along the grass right into his path to be struck. And it was passed to him by Anthony Marshall. And on this occasion, he checked inside and tried to pass it. And I think, really, he's taken a shot when he shouldn't have took a shot, but then not taken a shot when he should have taken a shot. So he needs to sharpen up on that, really, Fred. So I've given him it's not just for those reasons. I also think he was a little bit sloppy in possession at times as well. So I've given Fred a 5 as opposed to a 6 in the Evening News. First one that I've disagreed with. And I think they've got him the wrong way round, because they've given Matic a 5 and I've given Matic a 6. They've mentioned that he got nutmegged once, which he did get nutmegged once, but it's a nice little bit of skill by an opponent. You are playing against other players who can be half decent, don't forget that. So he did get nutmegged by an opponent, but he did little wrong, the Evening News have said. Then they've said the trouble was, this is what quite a few people are saying, the trouble was that United didn't need two steely, they've described them as steely, two steely midfield players against the 18th placed team in the league. Well, two things about that. First of all, it's not his fault. So if you're levelling that against him, that United played with two steely midfield players, that's not his fault. It's not his choice that United were going to play like that. But obviously he's been told he's playing, so he plays. It's as simple as that. It's not his problem. But then also, they've said they've also said that. But as I've already explained, I think it's right that they did play like that anyway. United did have to play with those two players. So I don't think Matic deserves marking down to a 5. As the Evening News themselves have said, he did very little wrong, or he did little wrong. So I agree with him, he did do little wrong, and I've given him a 6 out of 10 compared to the Manchester Evening News, he's 5. And here's the biggest one, this might surprise a few people. Juan Mata, they've given Juan Mata 5 out of 10. And they've said at times he was too passive, but his cross did earn the penalty that obviously that won the game for United. Obviously, I've got the benefit of having watched it again. When you're watching the game live, I always say this: it's easy to get frustrated when you want things to go well. It's also easy to not realise that sometimes when a player does something pretty good, that it's somebody else who then lets the side down. And this happened 3 or 4 times with Juan Mata yesterday, where he did quite well, and then somebody else let the team down, and it wasn't Mata. I've given Juan Mata a 7. Juan Mata got substituted on 62 minutes, and I've really studied the game closely, and I've studied Juan Mata's game closely. And as far as I'm concerned, Juan Mata was United's best player until he was substituted. So the Manchester Evening News have given Juan Mata a 5. I've given him a 7. I've given him, really, by giving him a 7, I've given him man of the match. Might be a little bit over the top because he only played the hour, but then again, it's not. He shouldn't have got taken off from. If you judge our players playing, and if that comes into your thinking rather than is a player not quick enough, or is he not? Is he too old? As some people say. If you're going to have that in your mind instead of just watching the game and deciding how somebody's playing, that's no way to make a substitution. You should be watching the game and then deciding from what you're seeing on the field who should be substituted. And Juan Mata was the last player I would have taken off yesterday. He was equally as bright as Bruno. I'm coming to Bruno next. Equally as bright. He was involved in at least as many good things as Bruno was involved in, but without giving the ball away anywhere near as often as Bruno did. So I would say Juan Mata was the pick of United's players yesterday, up until the moment he went off. So I've given him a 7 out of 10. And next is Bruno. They've given him 6 out of 10. I'll agree with that. I thought he was the one who looked like he was going to do something, along with Juan Mata, as I've just said. They've said that he set Marshall up. Marshall should have scored. That's a fair shout. But for me, he gave it away a bit too often. When a lot of people seem to think that when Bruno gets mentioned, that he's giving the ball away with his speculative passes and when he's trying to open up the opposition. But for me yesterday, and I've just watched it again, it isn't that. He just gave the ball away a little bit too often when he was just playing normal passes, and he got dispossessed a couple of times where maybe he shouldn't have got dispossessed. So I don't think Bruno was deserving of any more than a 6, but I will agree with the Evening News. I'll give him a 6 out of 10. He did look dangerous, but a 6 out of 10 is fine, I think. Anthony Marshall, they've given him a 5. They've mentioned an early header was saved. That was a cross from Juan Mata, by the way. When the header was saved, it was a great header and a great cross. It was he also missed a gilt-edged chance that was laid onto him by Bruno, they've mentioned. But then they've said it looked like he was going through the motions at times. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure, and I can agree with that. He is playing as a number 9 on his own. It is the most difficult position on the field. People need to realise that. He did get dispossessed 2 or 3 times, but he also held it up well at times. I also saw him beat men and pass it well. And then also Cavani came on for the last 15 to 20 minutes. Longer, he got about 28 minutes, Cavani. It was the other subs after that. So Cavani got 28 minutes plus injury time, and Marshall switched to the left wing. When he switched to the left wing, we looked more dangerous. He did quite a few good things, Anthony Marshall, when he switched to the left wing. And for his last half hour, I'd have given him more than 6 out of 10. But obviously, he didn't do fantastically well. But like I say, it's the most difficult position on the field, number 9. And I thought he did okay. So I would move him up to a 6 from a 5. And then similar for Marcus, they've given him a 4. I don't think Marcus was particularly worse than anybody else. I do agree that he didn't play great. They've said he was rusty after his injury. I don't get all this. They talk about, 1 minute they're talking about the players are playing too much and they need a rest. Then the next minute, one of your players gets 2 weeks off. He's had 2 weeks off, not 2 months. And then he comes into the game and they say that he looked rusty. I don't really think you should be looking rusty having had a 2-week rest, rather than, like I say, it wasn't 2 months, it was 2 weeks. And that, before you know it, they'll be saying he's played too much and needs a rest. So they often make excuses for players, and I don't think it's a fair comment now. But I also don't think it's fair giving him a 4. I don't think he was particularly worse than than quite a lot of it. Well, most of the rest of the team, really. So I'll move him up to a 5. So Marcus, they said he wasted a good chance later on, just like Marshall did. Really, he missed a good chance in the first half. Rashford managed to settle himself and have a clear shot at goal while he's actually got the ball stuck right in front of him at his feet, as opposed to Marshall moving onto a ball and having to hit it first time. So I think Marcus missed an even easier chance, or when I say missed it, the keeper made a great save, like he did from Marshall. But some people would add that he shouldn't have been given that opportunity. So I will be doing, as I do, I'll be doing a poll on Twitter. I'll be putting 4 names on the poll, and people can vote as to which player they want me to do the player in focus. So I'll be doing a player in focus tomorrow, and I will be marking, I'll do a poll. So whichever player comes out top of that poll, I will be going through his game with a fine-tooth comb, and I'll be explaining why I've given him the mark that I've given him. So I'll put a couple of players on there that people might think I've undermarked, and I'll put a couple of players on there. I'll put Juan Mata on there. Like I say, I've given him a 7, and a lot of people won't agree with that. But if he comes out on top in the poll, I'll be going through Juan Mata's performance with a fine-tooth comb and explaining why he deserved a 7 and why, for me, he was man of the match at the point that he got taken off the field. So I hope you've enjoyed that show. That's rating the ratings. I'll be back tomorrow with the player in focus. Let's see who gets voted on for me to do the player in focus. If you've enjoyed that show, please smash a like, please subscribe, tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, keep stum, don't tell anyone.